In this video, I will show you how to use the 3 iteration or looping statements of the C programming language. There are times that we do programs sequentially, wherein the compiler will execute the program line per line, or what we call sequential structure. There are also times that we need to create programs that will select which line of code is to be executed. This is what we call selection structure. But most computer programs involve statements that need to be repeated. This is where iteration or looping statements come in. Displaying numbers 1 to 5 is easily done using a single printf statement. If you are asked to display numbers 1 to 10, you could easily add numbers 6 to 10. But to display numbers from 1 to 100, or 1 to 1000, or even 10,000 is a different matter. Typing numbers from 1 up to 10,000 is tedious and not practical. To solve this, C programming offered iteration or what we call looping statements. When using any of the looping statements, we need to remember and include initialization, condition, increment or decrement, and the block of code to be repeatedly executed. Let us use the first looping statement, the for loop, to display numbers 1 to 5. Instead of doing this, we will be using the for loop. The general form of the for loop is the for keyword, then open and close parentheses, where you will write the initialization, which is used to set the counter of your loop. Let's take for example CTR is equal to 1. Since we will start displaying numbers 1 to 5, we start our counter set to 1 or initialized to 1. We have to declare the variable CTR with a data type of integer. After the initialization, another integral part of iteration statements or looping statements is the condition. The condition will yield a result of either true or false. If the condition is true, the statement will be repeatedly executed. Since we are planning to display numbers 1 to 5, we set our counter to 1 up to such time that the counter is less than or equal to 5. Since the statement that we will execute is the value of our counter. And then, after the initialization condition, we also have the block of code that we need to repeatedly execute. Lastly is the increment or decrement. In this case, we will be doing an increment since counter is set to 1 and it will be incremented to 2, 3, 4, 5 until the condition will become false and will stop executing the block of code. The value of the variable counter is 1, and since for loop is a pretest kind of loop, meaning it will first evaluate the condition before executing the statement. Since counter is equal to 1 and 1 is less than or equal to 5, then the statement will be executed. Afterwards, the counter will be incremented with 1. Counter now becomes 2, and 2 is less than or equal to 5. Therefore, the statement will again be executed. Then, the counter will be incremented and will have a new value of 3, and the condition 3 is less than or equal to 5 is still true. Therefore, still the statement will be executed. Counter becomes 4. Condition is still true. Execute the statement. Counter becomes 5. 5 is less than or equal to 5. True. The statement will be executed. Now counter is 6. 6 less than or equal to 5 is false. Therefore, it will not go to this statement and finish or end the loop. This is an example of a counter-controlled iteration since we know in advance the number of times this loop will execute. We will repeat the statement 5 times as it is stated in our condition. There we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's try to make a space in between each number by putting a space after %d. We could easily change our condition to 10 to display numbers 1 to 10. There. We could easily change it up to 50 or even higher numbers or higher value. So that is the power of a looping statement. A single statement can be executed several times depending on how you initialized your counter, and as long as your condition is true, it will continuously execute the program or the block of code. And make sure that you know when to use the increment or decrement. I'll give an example that instead of increment, we will use the decrement. Let us display numbers 5 to 1. In this program, we have to set our counter to 5. Our condition would be counter is greater than or equal to 1, and instead of increment, we will have decrement. So we have 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So this is displaying 5 to 1 using the for loop. Let us now use the next loop or the next iteration statement, the while loop. Is similar with for loop wherein it first checks the condition before going to the statement. While loop is also a pretest kind of loop similar with for loop. This is the general form of the while statement. We first initialize our counter. If we are to display again 1 to 5, we initialize it to 1. Then we have the while keyword, open and close parenthesis, and inside is our condition. That is, if counter is less than or equal to 5, open and close curly braces, is where you will write your statement to be repeatedly executed. This time, I will separate the numbers with a new line. We have the initialization, condition, the block of statement, and then we have the increment or decrement. We have here two looping statements used. We have used the for loop a while ago wherein we displayed 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Then we have here the while loop wherein we displayed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and separated the numbers with a new line. Let us try to display 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 using the while loop. Instead of incrementing only 1, we will be incrementing the value or the variable by 2. Therefore, we initialize counter to 2 as this is the first value that we will display. Our condition is while counter is less than or equal to 10, since 10 will be the last value or number we are to display. Then instead of counter plus plus, we say counter is equal to counter plus 2. We could also say counter plus equals 2. Later, we will try this. There we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Try to remove this. Make it as a comment and exchange with this one. Still, we have the same output. Next is the do while loop. Let us again display numbers 1 to 5 using do while loop. For the while loop, we tried to display 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. For the for loop, we displayed 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The general form of the do while loop is to initialize the counter outside of our do while loop. Then we have the do keyword, the statement that we will repeatedly execute, our increment, decrement, and our condition. While counter is less than or equal to 5, then a semicolon. The do-while loop is a post-test kind of loop since it will execute the statement at least once before the condition is tested. Unlike in the while loop wherein the condition will first be tested prior the execution. So there is a possibility that once the condition is false, it will not execute the statement part. Failure to include an increment or decrement in your loop may result to an infinite loop. That is because since counter is equal to 1 and counter will always be less than or equal to 5, the loop will not stop. That is the importance of adding an increment or decrement in your loop. We have displayed a sequence of numbers using the 3 iteration or looping statements. First is the do-while loop wherein we displayed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the while loop 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and the for loop 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you for watching.